Today I am going to be sharing with you some of the meals that I cooked for my family over the last 3 or 4 days. These meals are economical, they taste good, and they stick to your bones and they come together really quickly. If you are new here, my name is Chelsea. Welcome to Little Mountain Ranch, and if you've been here before, welcome back. We are going to be doing a little bit of cooking on my wood cook stove over here. Her name is Martha. I am not one who generally names inanimate objects, but she was so beautiful when we installed her. She had to have a name. So the first thing that we're going to do is get her lit and nice and warm, and then we'll get to cooking. The awesome thing about a wood cook stove is you would think it would take a long time to heat up, but it actually only takes about 20 minutes. So what I usually do is get my pot set up on the stove while it's heating up, and then I head down to the pantry to get all my ingredients. So down to the pantry to grab a couple onions. These are Patterson onions and they store so well. They're such a good winter storage onion. And in my pantry, I usually keep a box of potatoes that I've brought up from my root cellar. And that way I don't have to walk down to the root cellar when I need potatoes, because we actually use potatoes quite often throughout the week. So these ones are pretty dirty. Definitely going to need to wash those up. Grabbing some garlic. And then I did grab a couple of jars of French onion soup here, but I didn't end up using it. I decided to use chicken broth instead. Grabbing some leeks, and then bringing my big box of groceries up to the kitchen. So on this day, I decided I was going to make a big pot of cream of potato and leek soup, and also a split pea soup as well. I decided to get all my onions chopped up for both the soups and a chicken recipe that I was going to make later in the day. And this was early in the morning, so I decided to make some breakfast as well while I was getting all the prep done for the soup. And we decided to have steel cut oats. And these are quick steel cut oats from Costco. I added a little bit of cinnamon to them, which just adds some extra nice flavor. And then back over to the cutting board to get all of those onions chopped up. And some garlic, of course. And I decided to add some bacon to both of these soups. I like to cut my bacon when it's a little bit frozen because it's just easier to cut. So I'm going to pop this in the fridge until I'm ready to get it cooked up. Now with all the skins and the cutoffs of the onion, I put these in a bag and I will use these to make soup stock at a later date because it adds really nice color and flavor to soup. And now I'm just getting my potatoes all scrubbed up. You can't really tell with the way I'm holding them here, but I'm actually spinning the potato in my hand. So it's pretty quick to get my potatoes scrubbed. And back to the cutting board to get the potatoes peeled. Because I'm doing a cream soup here, I did want to take the potatoes off. Often in soup and stew, I'll leave my potatoes with the skins on as long as I scrub them well. But I'm getting these all peeled and then chopped up. And I'm trying to remember if I did this day a recipe using mashed potatoes. No, I didn't. that was another day. So now just scooping up some of my steel cut oats. And I decided to try a combination of apricots with some crushed walnuts and a little bit of maple syrup. And friends, it was so delicious. And then the cream the milk is whole milk. And what I realized actually while I was getting all of this ready is that I was out of maple syrup, so back down to the pantry to grab some maple syrup to top this delicious breakfast. It was so good. And then also realized that I had forgotten to grab my split peas from the freeze dry room. So I grabbed some split peas here. I like using my hands to scoop them because I just like the feeling. Also decided to make some bread and needed to stock up on my yeast, and grabbed a couple chickens from the freezer as well. So I just store my yeast in the freezer, and then I put them into mason jars and keep it in the fridge, and it lasts for a really long time. That bag actually is over a year old and the yeast is still perfectly good. Just putting a simple loaf of bread together. This is just going to be a white sandwich bread, and we'll be using this with some of these soups that I'm making. Now this might seem kind of weird, but I cook my chickens frozen. So I'm just popping these in my largest Dutch oven, and I will put them in the oven at about 200 degrees, and you'll see here that the lid doesn't fit right on, but as the chicken thaws, the lid settles back down, and then I turn it up to 350 when I'm actually going to cook them. So I knew that my oven over on the cook stove was going to be used for some other things, so I decided to pop that into my electric stove. Now just getting the rest of those potatoes chopped up. I have a couple of really tiny potatoes in my food storage, so I decided not to bother peeling those and just throw them in whole. And my bread is ready to do its second rise, so just covering that up. I like using parchment paper instead of a damp tea towel because I always find that my bread sticks to my tea towels, and the parchment paper and the little bit of oil just eliminates that. So now time for a morning cup of tea while the stove comes up to temperature. I am a Twinings Earl Grey kind of gal. Actually, any kind of Earl Grey tea I absolutely love. And I like my tea with some honey, and this is some of our, I guess you could say, homegrown honey. I didn't grow it, of course, the bees did, or the bees made it. And a little bit of our fresh milk. And on the way by the stove, I realized that my pots were hot enough, so I decided to fry up all the bacon in one and get half of the onion and half of the garlic going in my other pot. Once the bacon's done here, I'll fry up the rest of the onion and garlic in that other pot, loading the stove back up so it's nice and hot, and then letting Alex out. She needs to come in and out about 50 times a day. And then over to the couch to flip through a magazine and enjoy a cup of tea while everything's heating up on the stove. And now time to add our split peas. So I do wash my split peas well and then soak them a little bit and then put them into my pot. I'm stirring these ones up with a little bit of butter, and I'll be adding the onion and garlic to this as well. I'm also adding 2 quarts of chicken broth and 2 quarts of water, and half of that bacon that I fried up a little bit earlier, and the other half will go into our potato soup. Loading the stove again. The stove burns nice and hot if the wood is small, but it does need to be loaded quite frequently. And now adding some of my broth into, so this is turkey broth I believe I was using, and this is and 2 quarts of water, and this is for the potato soup. All of those potatoes we washed and peeled and chopped up into the pan, and then a whole bunch of leeks. So these are actually freeze-dried leeks, and these leeks are from the year before last, and they're still fantastic. Now I have decided to make a crisp, so I've grabbed some blackberries. Aren't those beautiful? Some of the canned strawberries, and also some peaches. I thought the combination of all 3 of those would be delicious. And these crisps that I'm making up for breakfast for later on in the week. I wanted to share with you something very exciting that came in the mail, and that is the Little Mountain Ranch by Ginger Burr apron. So I don't have the tea towels yet. They are on their way, but I do have the apron, so I thought we could open this together. Look at that cute little label. Isn't that so cute? What is so exciting about this apron is the fact that it was inspired by both of my grandmothers. These are my Grandma Pam's shortbread cookies, and these are my Grandma Maud's radio cookies, and both of those recipes are in the Little Mountain Ranch family cookbook. There's also hot chocolate and cinnamon buns. Both of those recipes are also in the cookbook, and I just think it turned out so incredibly cute, and I love it. And the tea towel that will be going with this match this pattern, and I think they are just perfect for the holiday season. Very, very festive. This apron is actually for my mom, so I am going to take it off so that I don't get any stains on it, but it's just so cute. I love it. And I'm excited to share with you that our tea towels and our aprons are now live. You can click the link below this video in the show notes and in the comment section to grab yourself one. So now all I'm doing is taking all of the fruit and putting it into a saucepan. I've decided here not to add all the strawberry juice because there was quite a lot of juice from both the peaches and the blackberries, and I'll be putting this over on the stove to heat up. And I'll show you what I'm going to do with it in just a second. So now I'm just putting together the crumb topping, adding some cubed cold butter, a little bit of flour, and some old-fashioned oats, a pinch of salt, and a good amount of brown sugar, and then I get that mixed all together. And I've shared with you before that for all my fillings, I don't add thickener when I'm going to can them. This is just a little bit of cornstarch that I'm adding, and it thickens it up right away. And that way I don't need to use thickener when I'm canning, so you can see how shiny and nice and thick and beautiful that looks. So I'm making 2 crisps today and putting half of that filling in one cake pan and half in the other, and then topping it off with my crumble. And I baked this at 350 degrees until it was golden brown. And then I just set, I put one into the freezer and set the other one aside for breakfast the next day, and into the cook stove to bake. Okay, so this is that strawberry juice that was at the bottom of the strawberries. Just added some carbonated water to it and some ice. It's delicious. We made our own homemade pink drink. That's awesome. Okay, so the plan now is just to get these soups cooked here on the stove and the crisps cooked in the oven. And here are the chickens that I have been cooking in the oven, and there's all of the liquid down there. So I'm actually going to let these cool overnight. It's supposed to get below freezing tonight, so I'll just put these outside. And then tomorrow, I'll decide what I'm going to do with all this chicken. And with the broth and the bones, I'm going to make some more broth to make up for the 4 quarts of broth that I used today. Just getting some seasonings added into the soup here, some salt, some pepper, and a little bit of thyme. Really didn't need much because the vegetables flavor it pretty much on their own. And the soups were absolutely delicious. So, so good. They're both so good. I decided to blend half of the potato soup to make a creamy potato soup with a little bit of chunkiness in it, and then added some beautiful cream to it to make it nice and smooth. And my kids said that this soup was absolutely delicious. I really enjoyed it, but you know you have a winner when all your kids like it. So both of the split pea soup actually and the cream of potato soup, the cream of potato was their favorite. They absolutely loved. So now it is the next morning, and I am having some of that crumble with some really thick and creamy milk. And honestly, friends, this was absolutely delicious. Now on to taking all of the chicken off the bones here. This is kind of a gross job, but the chicken is cooked, so it's not that bad. So I just peel as much of the meat off as I possibly can. And now I'm just going to fill up the pan or the pot with some water. I decided to use all those onion skins and tops from the day before into this broth. I'm planning on canning this broth, just plain broth, to make up for all the cans that I used making these recipes. I had some carrots in the fridge from a recipe a while ago, so I used those. They were getting a little old, so I threw them in with some bay leaves, and I have a ton of basil this year, so I decided to add some basil to it as well. I also have all the tops from the celery that I cut up and freeze dried in the fall. And so I always throw some of that. It adds such a nice flavor to broth. and over to the stove. Now it is time to put together some of my favorite sandwich filling. This is a chicken sandwich filling, and one of the key ingredients in here is my canned zucchini relish and a little bit of cowboy candy. It is so good. So this is going to be for the next day's lunch. I'm just putting it together now because I have the chicken. So I've reserved half of the chicken, or more than half of the chicken, to make some chicken pot pies, and some of the other chicken I'm using for this recipe. It is amazing how far chicken can go. So I have decided that I am going to add some finely minced onion into this as well. And because this is going to be sitting in the fridge, all of those flavors are going to meld together. I also added a little bit of garlic powder to this, and it was delicious. So I'm chopping up these onions here for the pot pies that I'm going to make. And so now I'm going to fry these onions up, because while I could just stick the onions right in the filling for the chicken pot pies I'm going to make, I think that the flavor just tastes better when they're a little bit caramelized. So now I'm taking all of that chicken. I did chop this chicken up, and I'm adding it into 2 pans here. And into this, I'm going to be adding some really simple ingredients. These recipes could not be easier. So I'm adding some canned corn that I had left over in the fridge from a recipe a few days prior. This is just some frozen mixed vegetables, organic mixed vegetables from Costco. I could have gone and chopped a bunch of carrots, but I didn't want to. No, now a little bit, or quite a lot actually, of garlic powder, and a little bit of salt as well. And some seasonings. I added a little bit of thyme to this and a little bit of basil. So now just mixing up that chicken filling, and like I said, I'll just pop this in the fridge and we'll have this the next day. Now I have all of those peels again and cut-offs from the onions, so those are going to go back into the bag and into the freezer. So now I am peeling up some potatoes, and I'm trying to remember, oh right, because on one of these pies I made a biscuit topping, and on the other one I made mashed potatoes, because not everyone in our house likes to eat a lot of wheat, so that way I have both options available. So I'm just cutting up these potatoes to make some mashed potatoes, and then our onions are going to go right into our pans, and then I'll just mix everything all together. And I'll top it off with some chicken broth here. So half a quart into one and half into the other. Now, if you wanted to add some thickener to this, you could, if you wanted a bit of a thicker gravy, but because I'm using mashed potatoes on one, the starch from the mashed potatoes thickens that gravy. I'm using a baking powder biscuit topping on the other one, and that also, the flour thickens it up as well, so I don't bother adding extra thickening. So now just covering up that one with some of these mashed potatoes. I just added butter to the mashed potatoes. It didn't actually need anything else because they were really well cooked. And now making a simple baking powder biscuit recipe. So just some flour, some cold butter, a little bit of salt, and then I am just acidifying my milk over here, souring the milk to make kind of an imitation buttermilk. And I mix all these together, knead it ever so slightly. For nice fluffy biscuits, you don't want to work your dough too much. I don't know why I can get a fluffy biscuit, but I can't make a pie crust to save my life. So just very carefully mixing all this together, and then I'll roll it out and fold it in half a couple times to get a nice high fluffy biscuit topping. This was so good. I actually said when we had this for dinner that I think it might have been the best chicken pot pie I had ever made. It was really, really tasty. So now lots of crust on top of that. It was a very rustic looking pie, and yeah, it was delicious. And into the oven to bake. we're now on to the next day, and I am just pulling out one of the loaves of bread that I made before. I just got those bags, they're lined bread bags off of Amazon. They're pretty good. The only thing about them is the zipper on one of them broke pretty much within the first week, but I really like the style. So just cutting some bread, and now I'm going to put some of the chicken topping on the bread. I don't like mine too liberal, just usually about a centimeter or so worth of topping. And then that is my cheese. That is actually bulk cheese from Costco, so the big Kirkland brands. We just cut them in half and then vacuum seal them, and they last way longer that way. That way we can buy it in bulk, put it in our cheese fridge downstairs, and it lasts forever. So now I'm just covering it up with some cheese, and then I'm going to broil it in my oven until it's nice and bubbly on top. And I decided to try putting some of my homemade cranberry sauce, which is so good, on top of one of these. And I actually ended up putting it on the other one too because it tasted so amazing. You could make this with turkey as well, and it would taste kind of like a turkey dinner. It was really, really good on that homemade bread. Just delish.
So good.
What I decided to do with that chicken broth that I made, I think it was yesterday, is actually turn that into some vegetable soup that I'm going to can. I was going to can it plain, but there's actually not a ton there. But I can stretch that out by adding some veggies to it and can some vegetable soup. So I will share that with you because I have had quite a few people ask about canning soups. So we'll do that together in our next video. I'll probably just throw this in the freezer until I decide to do that. I hope that you enjoyed this video, everyone, and maybe took a little bit of inspiration that you can bring into your own kitchens to make some delicious food for your own families or for yourself. I look forward to seeing you next time, everyone. Bye.